Former Arizona assistant basketball coach Emmanuel Book Richardson's travel receipts expose U of A's lavish spending on recruiting. Deshaun Miller's $1 million penalty clause break U of A's recruiting jinx. And will deploying 338 National Guard troops to the vast Mexico border really make a difference? These stories and more next on the 520. Well, we want to welcome you to the 520. I'm Steve Nunez.
I'm Arty the fourth. Thanks for joining us.
Let's jump right into this. A lot to go over.
Well,
do travel receipts for former U of A basketball assistant coach Emmanuel Book Richardson paint a picture that also exposes U of A for its out-of-control spending when it comes to recruiting? Well, through a public records request obtained by the Arizona Daily Star, financial reports show Book took at least 6 recruiting trips during the 6 months prior to the FBI arresting him on bribery and fraud charges. One trip alone included a stay at a New York hotel for one night, costing $629. U of A also allowed him to expense a nearly $200 Uber ride from Tucson to Phoenix. You can't make this stuff up, can you, Arty?
Of course you can. And to me, at first, this just shows the level of respect that Sean Miller included and the entire basketball coaching staff, the level of respect that they had for the administration and the financial situation of the university. We've been repeating ourselves and repeating ourselves. No love for the city of Tucson by Sean Miller and his staff. No love for the University of Arizona.
And I just think this goes to show exactly what's wrong with college basketball in general. No wonder the student athletes want to put dip their hands in the cookie jar. They want a piece of the pie. Why? Because they see assistant coaches like Book Richardson staying at a lavish hotel in New York. But how inexcusable is it for an assistant coach or anyone at the U of A during today's times when budgets are cut to take a $200 Uber ride from Tucson to Phoenix? I mean, that shows no accountability, which is exactly what the 520 has been talking about. This athletic department is out of control. I don't care if the U of A says the money came from the foundation, so it's not taxpayer dollar. Does it matter?
It shouldn't matter, and just like you said, there's no lack of accountability. There's also a lack of repercussions. There's a lack of consequences because while this was going on and after this is going on, the program hasn't seen any consequences.
And it's pathetic that the students have to pay that mandatory fee if this out-of-control spending continues, right?
Did changing Sean Miller's contract by adding a $1 million penalty if he's found guilty of an NCAA violation or is criminally charged in connection to the FBI pay-to-play scandal serve as assurance to recruits that it's okay to play at Arizona? 2 days after the state revamped Miller's contract, the Wildcats finally landed its first and so far only 2018 recruit. Devin Dutrieve, a 4-star point guard, visited Arizona over the weekend and immediately committed to play for the Wildcats next year.
Well, you got to give credit to the state on this one for saying, you know what, Sean Miller, if you are guilty, we're going to punish you. I've said it once and I'll say it twice and I'll say it again. Arizona should fine Sean Miller $2.9 million, his entire salary, if they're really serious. But this is a good start because Devin came to visit and he signed immediately, which shows there are some changes taking place that we don't get to see.
They still got the juice.
Correct. They still got the juice, and I got to give them credit for that. But I love this pick because, or I like the fact that he's coming here because it has opened up the door for other recruits to come. Hey, this kid is no chump change. He's a 4-star recruit. He's lengthy. He's going to bring, I saw him play on YouTube. He can play defense. He doesn't have the hops I would expect him to have at 6'5", but he definitely has the ability to drive, dish, or drive and shoot a little bit. Reminds me a little tiny bit of Sean Elliott.
Just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
And to me, this does not give an opportunity to the Wildcats basketball program to take their hand off the panic button.
Oh,
of course,
absolutely not.
Of course, they have a majority of their positions filled on the court, but what they're forgetting about is their depth for their positions. If somebody gets injured, if somebody has to take a break on the bench for rest, can those guys also account, and are they capable of maintaining the lead,
Correct. They only have 7 players signed right now. They still have 6 remaining scholarships. They do have a kid that's coming in next week, Lucas Kisunis. He is 6'9", 255 pounds. big guy.
Yeah.
I like him. I saw him play as well, and I like the fact that he can create space. He's not going to replace Aiden. He's not going to replace Tucson, but he does give us a low presence, at least underneath the basket, to be able to score. But let's go ahead. Just off the presses, Sean Miller has hired an assistant basketball coach to replace Lorenzo Romar. He is Danny Peters. Peters was assistant coach at Ball State over the last 4 years. Now, if Miller doesn't want to hire a former Wildcat to come back and coach, at least he did bring in somebody who's familiar with the program.
I like it. I like it. I'm a big fan of draft and develop philosophy. I love it.
All right. Well, our Arizona football coaches too focused on developing Khalil Tate, a front runner, no doubt, for next year's Heisman, that it stunted the growth of the defense. Well, the 520 got a first-hand look at the Wildcats spring practice that was open to the public. Cameras were not allowed inside, but we can tell you the offense has made a year's worth of improvements in just a couple of weeks, while the defense looks stagnant.
Absolutely.
And you
stagnant.
saw them.
I was there personally observing what I can from it. And I will say last year, a big problem with the defense was the defensive backs lack in playing the run game. They can't sting to the ball. They can't shed blocks. That's why the run game was so bad for the defense. And the man coverage for the linebackers, it's absolutely continues to be lackluster. I witnessed it myself, and I don't think Marcel Yates has put much effort into fixing that, or the entire coaching staff is too focused on developing Khalil Tate to make an effort towards that.
How can you go there, though, and say Marcel Yates, who coached a darn good team last year, a bunch of freshmen,
A darn good team. A darn good team is it's subjective and relative to say darn good team. What I will say, though, of course, I'm not going to make any preconceived notions on the rest of the year and foreshadow the season on this spring game. But what I will say is if this is the spring game in full pads, there is a lot of work to do before August on these two problems alone.
But let's give credit where credit is due, and let's talk a little bit about the offense. The offense, normally it's the defense that's ahead of the offense. In this case, with a Heisman hopeful, you have to believe the offense and should expect the offense to be in a better position than the defense. Remember, Khalil Tate is pretty darn good. A near 13-yard rusher last year, 1,300, and I should say 1,300 yards,
yeah,
and 1,300-yard passer, 12 touchdowns scored. He's awesome.
Of course.
A Heisman Trophy, so of course he's going to give the defense fits, and of course he's going to make them look bad. But I will say, in your defense and in the U of A's defense, the defense has had a year to play and know Khalil Tate's tendencies. They're returning 9 starters. They should know how to get to him or at least stop the offense and be able to look good and be a better defense as a result of incredibly good offense.
And when we go back and when we look at last year, just one example is a game like Arizona versus Washington State. Khalil Tate played mistake-free that game while the defense played heavily mistake-in. So if Khalil Tate has a few hiccups throughout the game, can the offense counteract and clean up the mess of the defense in that game? That's a big question the rest of the year.
You got to raise a question. The defense not looking good when they knew Khalil Tate wasn't going to pull the trigger and run left or right or down the middle. They knew he was going to pass, and they still couldn't stop him.
I'll give them that. I'll give them that. Should the Arizona Wildcats baseball team make the batting helmet stickers a long-term tradition? The JK stickers are in honor of legendary Arizona baseball coach Jerry Kindle, who passed away December at the age of 82. Kindle won 3 national championships after the Wildcats beat 4th-ranked Oregon State on a walk-off base hit in the 9th inning to capture the series with a 2-1 lead. Coach Jay Johnson said the stickers may look ugly, but that's okay if the Cats keep hitting the way they're hitting.
You gotta love it. I mean, keep the JK stickers. I mean, consider this. The Cats, as a team, are batting .294. They have 7 players who are batting above 300. They've scored 202 runs. I mean, 14 homers. Keep the stickers. Look like a football team. I don't care.
Yeah.
Keep hitting like you're hitting.
And Johnson versus Lopez, that comparison comes up daily. It comes up weekly and monthly. So this is his opportunity to separate himself with the kids and with the local media, because he's establishing, and with his own players, he's establishing his tradition, he's establishing his laws, he's establishing his motives. This baseball team has had some slumps, they've had some hiccups, so they have to be motivated to play. They've taken down Oregon State while they've lost to Washington in a sweep, so they have to be motivated somehow. If this does it, power to them, more power to them.
Hey, look, when Arizona beats number 4 Oregon State and takes the series 2 out of 3, something is going right. But consider the pitching. I mean, their pitchers have a 2.8 ERA. They've only allowed 99 runs. Again, the Cats have scored 202 runs. So the Cats really have the opportunity to be really, really good. This 19-11 record is unacceptable. And you're right, Johnson now has the opportunity to win with his own players. But I will say this, with that JK sticker, in honor of Jerry Kendall, who passed away in December, legendary baseball coach who's in the Hall of Fame. He coached Arizona to 3 World Series titles. In 9 seasons in the majors, he had a batting average of .213. So something, maybe, perhaps, he's just up there looking down on Arizona and saying, all right, I'll give you everything I wasn't.
Let's do it.
Right.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, mandating 2 recess periods per day for kids in kindergarten through 5th grade improve their academic performance. Governor Ducey signed the dual recess legislation into law. Opponents argue more time on the playground means less time learning about reading, writing, and arithmetic. What say you?
And I think they owe it to these kids at the rate that we're losing sports programs, the rate that we're losing fine arts programs. This is the least that they can do. We know that, you know, of course, reading, writing, arithmetic scores are lower than they should be. Learning retention is lower than it should be. This is just like we said before, it just could be the potential push in the right direction for them.
As the saying goes, on the playground. The best lessons learned at school sometimes are on the lessons learned on the playground. I think this is a great idea, but let's not let the state get off the hook with the fact that this doesn't cost anything. So of course Ducey is trying everything he can to promote anything that is free. Why not put your money where your mouth is, Governor Ducey, and fund athletic programs so that kids can play high school, middle school, and high school sports as well, to keep them off the streets, to keep them active, to keep them meeting the grades in the classroom, and not just this kindergarten through 5th grade, here's a free recess period, and by the way, we don't even know how long you should play. You know?
Of course,
just
another
go.
hour, another 30 minutes, and while they're also while you're bringing attention to the sports programs, we also have to give their attention to the cutting of fine arts programs, the art programs, the drama, the music programs. That's also another outlet for the unathletic kids who choose not to be unathletic. I say bring all of those back, give the resources back. I'm sure there's multiple local businesses that would love to put in on that.
Of course, we've always talked about, you know, this tax cut that he's given to businesses that is costing the state $100 million. Just take one tax cut away from the businesses and give it to these kids, and then we can have recess and sports, and everyone's a winner. And then give teachers a pay raise, right? All right, let's jump right into Do We Care? As you know by now, we're not just a sports show. We like to sprinkle in a few community issues, break them down, and ask ourselves, do we care? Well, Governor Doug Ducey, back to him, is only deploying 338 National Guardsmen to the border. It's in response to President Trump's order to send 4,000 troops to the Mexico border to fight against illegal immigration and drug trafficking. Do we care?
Absolute facade. It's an absolute jazz hand over the real problem. All it's doing is feeding the fear campaign that the conservative media, the conservative government seems to keep repeating itself over. Is the border really that unsecure? Is the border really that unsafe? Well, because the National Guard, all they can do is give us an extra pair of hands and eyes. Let's see how unsafe it actually is.
Look, 338 soldiers going to the border. Okay, just to man what's called a forward operating base requires 24/7 coverage, 2 to 3 soldiers per shift, 8-hour shift. So you need at least 9 per day. How many forward operating bases are 338 troops going to be able to man and really make a difference? And they want to place them in Tucson and in Yuma. Yuma's already under operational control. There's no one hardly crossing in Yuma. There's single, double, and triple layered fencing there. Texas is only planning to send 250. Wow, that makes a difference.
Facade, absolute facade. Well, Governor Doug Ducey signed the law to extend Rio Nuevo's lifeline for another 10 years, allowing it to operate through 2035. Rio Nuevo, a multi-purpose taxing district, will move forward with ambitious plans to build a 20-story office building in downtown Tucson. We care about this one.
I do care about this one because I love downtown. I grew up downtown. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm going to give Ducey props for once because he did extend this Rio Nuevo. Before the state took over Rio Nuevo and took it from the hands of the city leaders who botched it and spent $230 million on blueprints without a thing to show. Over the last 7 years, the Rio Nuevo board has brought in Caterpillar, 600 jobs. There's businesses and revitalization is everywhere. I love it. Good for the state.
Good for the state.
Take it and keep it away from the hands of our city leaders.
Of course, and I do hope it sends a message to our city leaders that the downtown Tucson is completely self-sufficient without them.
Agreed. Well, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that colleges can't give in-state tuition to young immigrants protected from deportation under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. The justices unanimously agreed the Arizona Court of Appeals ruling that said existing laws don't apply to DACA recipients. Do we care?
Yeah, of course we care. These kids have continued to get the short end of the stick. This to these kids is everything. It's the difference of thousands of dollars at a time. This is an absolute terrible idea to them, especially considering their current situation.
I will give props to the Arizona Board of Regents. They did pass a rule. It's called 150% rule, which means DACA students, if this were to be enacted, which it is, they only pay 50% more tuition instead of out-of-state tuition. So in other words, instead of paying $12,000 to attend the U of A, they're going to pay $18,000. Love it. It's a win-win situation. Right?
I gotta say.
Well, you've heard the phrase, oh, no, you didn't. Well, here at the 520, we're not afraid to tell it like it is with, oh, yes, we did. And I will get started. I'm sure you've heard gun advocates argue, guns don't shoot people, people shoot guns. Well, I'm going to say it like it is. It's a stupid argument. And here's why. During a breakfast meeting at a restaurant speaking with constituents on gun violence, South Carolina Republican Congressman Ralph Norman pulled out his personal and loaded .38 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun and placed it on the table. Norman claims he was trying to make a point that guns are only dangerous in the hands of criminals. Norman then stated, quote, "I'm not going to be a Gabby Giffords." As we all know, he was referring to the January 8th, 2011 mass shooting in which 6 people were killed and 13 others wounded, including former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Well, Norman further stated, "I don't mind dying, but whoever shoots me better shoot well or I'm shooting back," end quote. Let's be clear. Not only is pulling out a loaded gun on an irresponsible stunt, it's flat out irresponsible gun ownership. Shamefully, gun rights advocates are running to Norman's defense, but there is no defense for such stupidity. What would have happened if one of Norman's constituents had a mental illness, grabbed the gun, and started shooting everyone in the restaurant? Would he have been able to shoot back and end the threat? No. Most importantly, Norman should be disgraced for bringing Giffords into his ignorant, pathetic, and idiotic debate. Gabby's husband, retired astronaut Mark Halley, is right. Norman is no Gabby Giffords. She has courage. Norman is classless. The state of South Carolina should revoke his concealed weapons permit. It's idiots like him who destroy sensible conversations that lead to sensible gun laws that still protect our Second Amendment rights to bear arms, and within reason.
Thank you, Steve. I couldn't agree more. Up next, last Saturday, the University of Arizona conducted their annual spring football game. As I sounded off a few shows ago and a few segments ago, it's very evident to me that veteran coach and defensive coordinator Marcel Yates needs the most improvement. I personally attended the spring game and have come to the conclusion that either no one on that coaching staff is aware of the absolute liability the defense is, or Marcel Yates was kept on the staff by Coach Sumlin to preserve his image with the returning players. He's a people's coach. We've agreed to it here on the show. As I witnessed, for one reason or another, there is absolutely zero adjustments made in Yates' player technique and his own play calling. Of course, Coach Kevin Sumlin has seen last year's film. He's not deserving of a head coaching job if he doesn't agree with me, but after the absolute ordeal that Rich Rodriguez was, Kevin Sumlin was in a slippery slope at the beginning of his career just to become the nicest guy in town as fast as possible. Because of this, he deemed that retaining the players' the player's choice for his head coaching position was his best opportunity to do so. I'll admit, the kids respond so well to Yates. They're comfortable with him, but still, Mr. Sumlin, I understand you're an offensive mind and that you're about to be using every inch of it trying to clean up after your defense this year. What a mouthful. Got
Well
too worked
said.
up. Got too worked up to even finish
But I will
it.
say this again, they are returning 9 returning starters. Let's give them credit. I think this team is going to mature and peak when the time is needed.
We will see. We will see.
Well, before we go, we'd like to give props to legendary Arizona Wildcats basketball coach Lute Olson. A ceremony to dedicate a statue in his honor will be held on Thursday, April 12th on the Eddie Lynch Pavilion at McHale Center. Well deserved.
And we'd also like to give major props to former Wildcat basketball player Lauri Markkanen. Markkanen joins the likes of Michael Jordan in becoming the 4th Bulls rookie to record 1,000 points and 500 rebounds in a season.
Bottom line, our goal is to tell it like it is because it's all about giving voice to opinions even if you don't agree.
Be sure to follow us 520 on Facebook and on Twitter at the 520 Tucson.
And if you have a topic you want us to cover, let us know. I'm Steve Nunez.
And I'm Arty Mata IV. Join us next week on the 520.
Go Wildcats.